Hey everybody, Tyler Cruz here, also known as Always Dizzy. I am back with my round 2 game report from the 2025 New Year's Open. It's been a few days since I posted round 1. If you haven't seen that first, I would recommend going back and watching that. Yeah, so let's just dive right in. So round 2, I was paired up against Minjun Koo, who I hadn't played before and also hadn't really seen or have been aware of. So I'm not sure if he moved to the province. In any case, he was rated 1955 over the board. I was a little surprised to be playing in 1955 after losing the first round, but it makes sense because if he lost, then I'm still paired up. So I guess it does make sense, but for some reason I was expecting a lower rated opponent. As I always do during my game reports, you might see me looking over this way because I have all of my notes in chess space that I will be reading from. So yeah, I didn't have much time before my round because this was again round 2. But I was preparing against him, and then somebody I knew came up to me and was talking to me, and so I ultimately missed out on about 5 to 10 minutes of prep that I would have otherwise had. But ultimately, I guess that falls on me because if I really was keen on getting every minute of prep in, I should have spoke up and said something like, "Hey, I'm busy." And what I had prepped actually came on the board. And so had I had another 5 or 10 minutes to look into the lines, I think it would have actually really made a difference in the game because not only would it have given me more confidence, but it would have saved me a bit of time in the game so I didn't have to work stuff over the board. Anyways, I played e4 and my opponent played e5. Now this is funny because I thought there was a way for me to get rid of these arrows. I guess I just have to click on it. But I thought there was a way. Well, maybe not. If anybody knows in ChessBase how to get rid of those arrows of the last move, that would be great. I prefer the way like Chess.com and Chess does it, where it just highlights the 2 squares. I don't really like the arrow. So I played knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and then f5. This is the Schliemann variation. For anyone that has watched the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer as much as me, this opening makes a cameo in the movie. It's when Josh is playing in the park, and it's like a 5-second scene, and then I can't remember his name, but Lawrence Fishburne says, "What's this?" And then Josh says, he goes, "Schliemann," or something like that. Anyways, this is a very rare opening these days. Even online, you almost never see it. I know I do have some general ideas on how to play against it, but it is very rare. So especially over the board, yeah, extremely rare. It's basically a better version or a safer version of the Latvian for black. So the Latvian is on move 2, black plays f5. Very aggressive, very sharp, very dangerous. It's an underestimated opening. Objectively, though, it's not good for black. I forget the eval, but it's like +1, or maybe more than +1. It might be like +1.5 or something. But it is dangerous. The Schliemann is a much better version of it. It's kind of equal. Well, no, not quite equal. I think white has a small advantage here, but not nearly as much as in the what did I just say? Latvian. Okay. So he whipped this out, and I whipped out my response very quickly just to show. And I mean, I know I'm not rated high, but I still like a bit of psychology when I play, and it just, it's fun. So I whipped out my move quickly just to show, like, hey, this is not news to me. First of all, I knew, well, my opponent plays a lot of different openings, but I did prepare against this one. Not prepare, but because I didn't have time to prepare, but I reviewed. I just reviewed the opening, and yeah, so I made my move quickly just to show that, yeah, I'm not going to be intimidated by your offbeat opening. So I played d3. I think just as good as knight c3. D3 is what Anand and Caruana frequently play, and it's what I switched to. I used to play knight c3 myself. It's just a very, very solid and safe way for white to play. So it's hard for black to really give white a whole lot of trouble. So he took on e4. I recaptured. He played knight f6. And then there's a kind of an important move here that is good to know. So the very natural knight c3 defending e4 is commonly played. My notes say in a filtered database on Lichess, it's played 30% of the time for players that are rated 2000 and higher. And that's Blitz and Rapid and Classical. But this is not optimal because bishop b4 runs into bishop b4, and then black gets instant equality here because there's no good way to deal with this pin and deal with the e-pawn at the same time. Yeah. So for example, I think like knight c3, I think bishop b4 right away. And then it's just, I mean, it's not losing. It's not losing or anything like that, but it's just awkward for white. Because now white has to defend the e4 pawn somehow, or defend the knight on c3. So it's just a very, very, very obvious but easy oversight to make. So, whoops, how do I get rid of these arrows? So I castled first. If it'll let me make a move. There we go, castled. And here black cannot capture on e4 because then the e5 pawn will fall and his king is still in the center. So yeah, that would not be advised for black. And then he played bishop c5. So here I was a bit frustrated because this was the position that I had got to right before that person came up to me and was talking to me. Again, I only had like 5 or 10 minutes before the round started, but really if I kept going here, I would have gotten another 2 or 3 moves in, and that again it would have saved me time and hassle here. But I had an inkling, a very slight remembrance or memory that taking on c6 here was the best move. But I was not sure. I was certainly not sure. But that's an oxymoron. Certainly not sure. Because it was just a faint memory that taking on c6 here was like the move, but I couldn't remember why. And since it was unclear to me, I didn't want to play a move purely on memory. And so I played bishop g5. But as it turns out, when I came home and analyzed it, bishop takes c6 is a great move here. Great, maybe not great move, but it's objectively the best move. Bishop g5 is fine. Bishop g5, nothing wrong with bishop g5. It was okay. But again, it would have been helpful to just had another 5 or 10 minutes to look at this opening. So yeah, I think taking on c6 is nice because, first of all, if black takes with the d pawn, then I'm not sure if we want to. Yeah, probably we would like to trade. Yeah, so this would be good, I'm sure. And then if he takes with the b pawn, I think we are okay to take on e5 here. Because black's king is in the center, and if he castles, I'm not quite sure. I guess just knight c3. Like I forget. See, even now, I need to review these lines more. But in any case, that would have been a little bit better than bishop g5. And hang on 1 second. Do I have notes here? No, I just looked at that one. Okay, so, okay. Anyway, sorry. My opponent played d6 here, which I guess makes sense because he's defending e5. Otherwise, I'm threatening to take on c6 and then e5. So he played d6. I developed my knight to c3, and he castled. And then I played the very simple knight d5. Right, just putting pressure on this pin. He played king h8, which at the time I thought was a little weird, but it makes sense as you see in the game. And apparently it's a kind of a thematic move in this opening. King h8, I played c3. Just wanted to get control over b4 and d4, and also give my bishop maybe somewhere to reroute to if it needs to. But yeah, I thought I had a nice position, and I just wanted to start preventing counterplay, essentially. c3, and then he played knight e7. So here I spent 5 minutes, and I remember thinking on this move, debating if I should take on f6 with the bishop or the knight. But in hindsight, I think this was not really the best use of my time. Remember, this was the time control here is 50 plus 5. Okay, so which, by the way, I love. It's a great time control. It might be my new favorite time control. But 50 plus 5 minutes on a move, that's on a move that doesn't quite matter so much. It's a little bit long. So yeah, again, I don't know if it was really the most the effective use of my time here. And then after I made my move, I was down to 31 minutes. So it goes by quick, right? I took with the knight. And again, I don't think I needed to have spent 5 minutes on this move. But knight takes f6, g takes f6, bishop h6. So bishop e3 would have been a little bit better because with bishop h6, I'm effectively losing a tempo because my bishop will be driven back later with rook g6, as you'll see. Whoops. So, come on, this is the most natural move in the world. Give me a break, right? But he has to move the rook. And then after rook g6, there's no way for me to really defend that bishop. I mean, technically I can with a queen, but then he can attack it again, right? So I can't stay on h6. And whereas his rook will be better placed on g6 than where it is right now. So yeah, I should have just retreated, but it wasn't a big deal. It was a small difference. Yeah, so he played rook g8, I played king h1 because I wanted to just get off of this. I don't know if you can call it a pin right now. Technically it is. But I wanted to be able to play maybe f4 at some point, maybe rook g1. And I also wanted to just get off of any stuff like bishop h3. Of course, I guess that's probably the main reason. So I played king h1 and then rook g6. And then there goes my tempo, right? So then I have to play bishop e3. Actually, no, the computer said, I don't have the computer on when I do this, but I have notes when I did look at the computer. Stockfish 17 suggested queen d2 or bishop d2 because it wants to avoid the double pawns. Now, obviously, I saw that I would get that I could get double pawns here, but I didn't mind them because I thought having access to the semi-open f file could be useful. So, for example, I thought like I could maybe get a rook lift in here, put it on h3, or just put pressure on f6. So like, whoops, did not mean to do that. Chat space is so annoying. So that I could play like knight h4, something like this. I thought this might be useful. You know, we have ideas here. So I didn't really mind the double pawns, but yeah, the computer preferred these moves instead, queen d2 or bishop d2. And my opponent played bishop b6. Again, the computer recommends to give white the double pawns. And yeah, I think specifically it recommended this, bishop g4 afterwards. But yeah, after bishop b6, I went bishop c4. I think I just didn't want him to get his bishop to a nice square. I think that was the main reason. Maybe I was stopping d5. That might have been another reason. Yeah, so it made sense to me. And he went c6. And I took on b6 because his bishop's more annoying than mine. Long term, that's a pretty decent diagonal for him. So yeah, I traded. He took with the a pawn. Otherwise, if he takes with the queen, I'll take on d6. I played queen d2, just connecting my rooks and I think trying to put pressure along the d file. He played d5. I played rook a d1, which is a bit reminiscent from the first game, the first round, where I don't immediately recapture, but I add to the pin. He played bishop e6. I took on d5. He recaptured with the pawn. And then here I had a bit of a tough choice. I had bishop d3 and bishop b3, right? Yeah, so I thought here for a little bit, not like I think like maybe just a couple minutes, but yeah, it was a bit of a tough choice for me. The computer said it wasn't a big difference. It was like a 20 centipawn difference between the two moves. So yeah, I put it on d3. He played rook g7. And then I played bishop c2. So bishop c2 was a mistake, a very obvious mistake that is kind of funny because I think neither of us saw it, I believe. Yeah, it simply allows rook takes a2. I just dropped a pawn. Rook takes a2. And I remember at the time thinking that for some reason he couldn't take on a2. I thought for some reason he would get trapped. And I don't remember why I thought that. Because like he's not getting trapped. I probably just got confused when I was looking at some other line earlier because maybe I was thinking sorry, let me put this on. Maybe I was thinking I had bishop b3, but I don't because for one thing he has rook a5, and for another thing he's d5 is protected 3 times. But there was probably some other line where I calculated this earlier, but it didn't work in this position. So I just dropped a pawn. And he didn't take the pawn because maybe he had the same blindness that I did. And he went queen g8, which to be fair, I guess still creates a threat. So I have to deal with g2, and then he could still take on a2. So I guess this made sense. Yeah, queen g8. I went knight h4, and then he went rook g4. Still makes sense, right? Because he has two threats here. And I played queen h6. So this is not the best move. It's not the top engine move. The computer preferred g3 here, but pragmatically, I still like the move. I might still play it again in a game, because I think it was a practical choice. First of all, it was aggressive, and black had to actually tread carefully here because white actually has a number of different tactical threats here that black has to be careful of to not allow immediate tactics. And this proved to be true because in the game, my opponent spent 6 minutes on his reply. So again, 6 minutes in a 50+5 game it's a fair bit, right? So all credit to my opponent, Minjun. I don't know if it's Minjun or Minjun. Might be Minjun. Yeah, but after 6 minutes, he found the best move, which was a devious move. And he played queen f7, which I was not thinking of. I was mostly just looking at all of the ways that he could go wrong. But yeah, queen f7 is very, very dangerous. And again, the top engine move. And the threat here is not rook g8, not rook a g8, but knight g8. And then my knight will hang because my queen is the only defender of my knight. And if my queen gets kicked out and I can't go to h5 because of his queen covering it, well, then my knight will fall to his rook. So yeah, so that was very dangerous. Like I could just lose right on the spot after knight g8 if I wasn't careful here. So I played g3, which defends the knight so that if he plays knight g8, I can just move my queen out. Note that I can't play knight f3 because then rook f4, which I didn't see this at the time. I saw this after when I looked at it with the computer, but rook f4, and now the queen is trapped. So the knight is safe, but now the queen is trapped because knight g8 is coming, and there's nowhere I can go. The queen can't go anywhere. Even knowing that knight g8 is happening, the queen has no place to hide. So yeah, so I played g3, and then he played a rook a g8. Computer says that, yeah, taking on a2 was stronger. But I don't know if my opponent just believed me and thought that for some reason taking on a2, there was some trap or something. But I don't know if he believed it or what. But this would have just been simpler because there's no rush for black here. He can take the pawn and always come back. But yeah, he played rook a g8. And then I played a4. So a4, computer says, is an inaccuracy. But I was down to 6 minutes here. Yeah, I burned a lot of time. So I was down to 6 minutes, and with only a 5-second increment, I really had to haul ass here because my opponent had 18 minutes. So I couldn't afford to find perfect moves here, but the best move, according to the computer, was f3. Yeah, attacking his rook. So I played a4, then he played f5. And then I played queen e3 because I was scared my queen was going to get trapped here. This is very scary. I didn't see anything like that I could get trapped, but again, I had 6 minutes. I didn't want to have to calculate if it could get trapped or anything. You know, there's scary things that you have to worry about, like I don't know, stuff like that, or the knight reconfiguring itself to attack it, like here, for example, or here, like, yeah. So I just got the hell out of there. And the computer had said that better would have been rook d e1. And it's important that it's the d rook not the F rook. And you can pause the video if you want to try to figure out why. Why rook DE1 and not rook FE1. And the reason is because, do I have the reason here? I don't think I showed why, but I'll show you the idea behind rook to e1. Because e4 then from black, and if f3, and the rook comes back and we take on e4, we can then take on e4, and after d takes e4, we have bishop takes e4. So it's important that the d rook goes to e1 so that there's this pin along the f file for black's queen, on black's queen. So that was the idea behind rook to e1. It's to play f3 if as a way to play against e4. And yeah. So anyways, I played queen e3 and he played knight c6. And here, if you're curious of the evaluation, it was equal. So the computer evaluation was equal here. But at this point, I had 4 minutes left on my clock. Again, only 5-second increment. And then I blundered. It's just very unfortunate. Yeah, so it's completely equal here. But I played knight f3. And it's not an obvious mistake, right? And the reason I played it is, well, I thought my knight was not really participating very much in the game on the side of the board here, and I just wanted to kind of reconfigure it, maybe get some pressure going like this. But this is a blunder, and it was just too weakening. Black has too many different ways to attack now. It was a little bit slow in a way, and I think, I honestly, I didn't take a deep look into it. Was the engine, but for one thing, I think like f5 or f4 rather becomes a bigger threat here. So I played knight f3, and my opponent played. So here I think he thought for a little while, and I was surprised what he played because I thought for sure he was going to play f4. So again, that's kind of the downside to playing knight f3. Yeah. But yeah, I thought he was going to play f4, but it turns out e4 was just as good as f4. So he played e4, and I played knight h4, and well, I lost the tempo here, right? And black's just attacking, and so as a reminder, in this, according to the Chess Federation rules, since we only had 5-second increment, we don't have to record the moves once we are under 5 minutes on the clock. I think 30 seconds is the minimum amount of time that you need to have to write the moves down. And so since I only had 1 minute left at this point, I stopped recording my moves. However, the game didn't last. Wait, was it here? Yeah. So, sorry. So yeah. So there's no more. There's actually no more to this game. But the game didn't last too much longer. I think maybe 5 or 6 more moves, and then I resigned. I know it might feel weird to just end the game here, but I'll turn the engine on in a minute to kind of show you ideas from black. I might as well do that now. So let me turn on the engine. But yeah, this was my last recorded move, knight h4. So hopefully it doesn't affect the quality of this video with the engine on. Let me reduce the number of lines a little bit here. Yeah, so if you're curious, it's -3 here for black. And just, yeah, f4 next. If I just play the top moves from both sides, like queen d2. There's rook takes h4, but the top move is actually queen h5. And then the top move for white is is knight g2, then e3. You can kind of see how black just walks right through white here. So I'll just play the top moves for a little bit. I mean, and something similar happened in the game. Yeah, it was not pretty. So it was an unfortunate loss. I mean, I didn't feel terrible about it. My opponent's higher rated, but it's a little annoying that I'm equal here and then losing, losing, because it's not a, it doesn't seem like it's a completely losing move, but it was. That being said, I was a lot lower on the clock, so my opponent was putting a lot of pressure on me anyways. So I was, yeah, if objectively I was okay on the board, the clock is a huge component of the game. So yeah, that was the game. Not a super long game in number of moves. I dropped the a2 pawn earlier, which my opponent didn't pick up on. Yeah, other than that, like, oh, and then, yeah, I mean, the mistakes I made were really minimal. It was really just this knight f3 that kind of cost me the game. Yeah, let me turn off the engine. Hopefully that worked okay. Yeah, so this was another loss. And just reading my notes here. Yeah, so this was another loss. So I was 0 out of 2 at this point. Still had 7 rounds to go because it was a 9-round tournament. So it sucks to lose the first 2 games, but at the same time, my opponents were both hundreds of points higher than me, so it didn't bother me too much. I was just hoping to, finish the day with a win on the 3rd round. So that's it for this video. I'll be back with round 3 in a couple days from now, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. See you next time.